What up? What up? What up? Good morning. How you guys doing? Welcome to College Basketball Heat Check. We're in episode 3, holiday edition. Eli, what's up, my man?
I'm doing well. How's everything on your end? You getting ready for the holidays coming up?
Yeah, getting ready, man. Getting ready. We got the holiday theme in the background. We have two awesome guests. Two of the hottest teams in the country. We have coaches from SMU, and then we have our first head coach on the show. I won't give away what school he is from, but they are undefeated, so they have not lost a game. So we got a big time show today. We will have a lot of fun with it, and yeah, looking forward to it. So before we really get going and have our guests come on from actually both teams are again two of the hottest teams in the country, and one team is undefeated. We have a head coach coming in. Before we do that, we'll let Eli tell us a little bit about Heat Check CBB.
Yeah, so we've got this show going on, our Heat Check show every other Tuesday. Really fun taking a look at kind of the big topics, big storylines in basketball, and it pairs nicely with what we're doing over on the website at heatcheckcbb.com, covering college basketball from a variety of angles. You might read about West Virginia one day, you might read about Winthrop another day, just trying to cover the sport best we can. We've got bracketology, we've got statistics, we've got all different sorts of things, just really trying to provide a full scope of what's going on in college basketball. And I think this show really pairs along nicely with what we're trying to do there.
Absolutely, absolutely, and excited to do it, and excited to be a part of the Heat Check team. So let's dive in. We got a few minutes before our first guest comes on. Coach Yafet King from SMU, assistant coach over there. They are one of the best teams in the American and look like every bit of an NCAA tournament team. Excited to have him on and talk about their squad. But yeah, let's talk about some of the hot topics in college basketball right now. Wherever you want to go first, lead the way.
Yeah, I think the biggest topic for me, at least over the weekend, was Gonzaga's win over Iowa. Coming off a 2-week pause, I didn't really know what to expect out of them. A lot of teams have reacted differently to coming off of that COVID-19 break, but they just look phenomenal again. Just offensive flow is just ridiculous. Jalen Suggs, the freshman guard, has been all as advertised, really scoring at all 3 levels, making really good defensive plays. He had that huge block on that fast break from Iowa, and just exciting player. He's doing a lot of great things, but the team behind him is just remarkable. Just the overall depth and the talent that they have. And I think they put a really impressive performance against the team that was currently ranked number 3 at the time. So for me right now, it looks like it's Gonzaga at number 1, Baylor number 2, which is what the AP poll has right now. And then I think that there's a significant gap between those two teams. And that's no discredit to, the Villanovas, the Iowas, those teams, Kansas up there too. But it just really looks like there's some separation between those two teams right now. So I'm curious if that kind of stays the same throughout the season. I would imagine we see more teams kind of pop up and grow as the season comes along. But for me right now, it's Gonzaga and Baylor, and then it's everyone else kind of in the rear view.
Yeah, so you're saying there basically is a tier at the top. The top tier looks like it's Gonzaga and Baylor. I would agree with that. I think definitely that matchup that we were going to see, it's almost a blessing in disguise that we didn't see it yet because it gives us something to look forward to with those two teams. Iowa, still a really good team. Garza had some good numbers, but they definitely have to make shots for them to be at the elite level, which I think they will. They normally do. And playing against a Gonzaga team like that, not something you're used to. Not a team probably resembling in the Big Ten that plays quite like them. So definitely a different look for them. But I think they will also get better and they'll make more shots. But I do think you're right. I think there's a clear-cut 1 and 2 or 1A, 1B, because I think Baylor is every bit a number 1 team in the country from what they had last year, and they're carrying over to this year. Looking forward to them playing in that matchup. And I do think there will be teams, as you said, as the year goes on, more games get played that will kind of jump into that category of at least competing with them. And as we know in college basketball, anybody can win on any night. So doesn't mean those teams are going to win the championship per se, but definitely looks like 2 Final Four teams and 2 teams that are cut above the rest. What's any other topics that you thought of before we have our first guest?
Yeah, well, the Big Ten is off to a crazy start so far. Northwestern just dominated Michigan State, which is not something that anyone could have predicted. Michigan State, for my money, I had them as my Big Ten champion heading into the year, but you could have reasonably picked Illinois or Iowa, and Rutgers has looked fantastic so far now that they have some really good perimeter shooting. So the Big Ten, top to bottom, I think is almost easily the best league in college basketball this season. And that's both a gift and a curse, I think, because you might have 4 top 15 teams, you might have 7 top 25 teams, but if they're all, giving each other losses, I think it's tough for at least to the committee to try to sort that out, because if your conference champion is 12-8, 13-7, I mean that's a lot of losses. But
Right.
we do know that every time one of these teams hits a road trip or even hosts a top 10, top 15 team at home, there's a chance that, you never really know what might happen. So I was looking at some of these schedules coming up. I think Maryland has 9 of their next 10 games against top 25 teams. It's just absurd what the Big Ten is doing right now. And we're not even really talking about Northwestern, which now has a top 5 win. Nebraska, they're probably going to be maybe the last place finisher in the Big Ten, and they've looked pretty solid. We saw them against Nevada, and it's a team that has good deal of talent there. So Big Ten race is going to be crazy. We might be there with 2 weeks remaining. We might have 5 or 6 teams that all are in the running for the title. So I think that race is going to be really fun to watch.
Yeah, you mentioned a few teams in the Big Ten. Michigan State obviously was the top 5. They just took a loss. Iowa was top 5. They took a loss. Not even to mention, Purdue's still a good program as always. You have Illinois, who was top 5. They've taken a couple losses. St. Louis and also Baylor. A lot of good teams. And like you said, the Northwesterns of the world jumping in. Michigan's undefeated. We haven't even mentioned them. They haven't lost a game. They look really good. Juwan Howard's team. So definitely looks to be like there's, I believe, we all read the quote from John Rothstein that said there is no bottom in that league. And I love that quote. I think he's right on with that, because right now it just looks like they have an abundance of tournament teams, and it looks like they're just going to be beating each other up. But that also is makes for some fun entertainment for us fans.
Yeah, absolutely. It's gonna be a tough win on the road in that conference. I can only imagine what it would be like if there were crowds at these games, because going on the road in the Big Ten is challenging enough. But it'll be interesting to see which teams are able to keep that momentum going, just to try to string 3-4 wins together.
Yeah, what about the mid-major scene? Anything jump out to you there? I know we've had some big-time wins. Winthrop had a big win this weekend over Furman. They look like they're a legitimate NCAA tournament team and one of the elite mid-majors right now. Drake is still undefeated. UT Chattanooga is undefeated. I'm drawing a blank on a few more. St. Louis has played at a high level. Southern Illinois, I believe, is still undefeated. So talk a little bit real quick about some of the mid-majors out there and what you see.
Yeah. Southern Illinois was impressive last night against Butler, getting that win on the road. That's a team that shot the ball particularly well, and I still thought that they did a pretty good job handling Butler's guards. Impressive win for them. They're another one of these mid-majors that is still undefeated. You mentioned Winthrop a little bit. I saw that game against Furman, and they were just hitting on all cylinders, led by I think as many as 20 or 22 in that game. It's a team that loves to go out and run, really push the pace when they get defensive stops. So that's been a really fun team. The A-10, as you mentioned, St. Louis, they dropped that game against Minnesota, but I still think it's probably a top 25 caliber team that they have over there. And just a lot of these programs that are showing up and still undefeated on the season, Drake, Chattanooga, and I also have to give some love to the WCC. And, Gonzaga will get all of the headlines, but BYU picking up the win against San Diego State, they look sharp in that one and really defended well, shut down Jordan Shackle after he had that big performance against Arizona State. And then St. Mary's got a huge win against Colorado State, only allowing 33 points, which, we know that that's an anomaly. Teams aren't going to score 33 points, and CSU has a good offense, but it's holding a team to 33 points isn't a joke either. So BYU and St. Mary's, those teams have looked sharp. So again, Gonzaga will get all the credit that they deserve. But that second tier in the WCC has been really strong as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we didn't even mention yet David Stoudemire's team still 3-1, I believe. Loyola Marymount has looked good as a team that has finished more toward the bottom, looks really competitive, and Stan Johnson's done a great job in year one there. San Francisco, obviously, we know they beat Virginia early. I don't even know if you mentioned that. You may have. And then there's a few more. Santa Clara is undefeated, if I'm not mistaken. They look good. So a lot of depth in that league as well on the mid-major side. I think this year they may be as good as any other league mid-major wise in the country, just as far as the depth to their league. Kind of another one of those leagues that on any night you just don't know who's going to be able to beat who, and anybody can beat anybody. And the Gonzaga scores may not be indicative of how good somebody is because they're kind of doing that to everybody. There's a couple other leagues. Atlantic 10, I think, is playing a high level mid-major wise. There's a lot of depth to that league. Talk about that conference a little bit, if you don't mind, before we bring on our guests.
Yeah, the Atlantic 10 is going to be really competitive at the top. I think you have two teams that are legitimately top 25 caliber teams. St. Louis is one of them. I've been really impressed. I was thinking that this was going to be a team that would be more so defensive oriented, but their offense has been really strong, and Jordan Goodwin leading the way at the point guard slot. But they have a number of guys who have hit from the outside. I think the re-addition of Gibson Jimerson has been huge for them. And I mean, going against a Big Ten team like Minnesota on the road, that's not always going to be a victory, and expecting a team to go undefeated for quite some time is a little lofty as it is. But St. Louis is tough. Travis Ford's done a good job there. Richmond going on the road and beating Kentucky. It's a win that's kind of diminished because of where Kentucky is at right now, but they've looked strong. They beat Vanderbilt on the road as well. They beat Loyola Chicago, which is another one of those strong mid-major teams. And then you can't even count out Dayton, and everyone talked in the offseason about losing Obi Toppin, but Jalen Crutcher's been great for them. They've looked strong. They've played well. And then the usual suspects, VCU is off to a strong start. St. Bonaventure is just getting going now. A lot of these teams, I think, can compete for a top 3, top 4 slot in the Atlantic 10, and that's a conference tournament that has had some of the most bizarre finishes in that league in recent years, from teams outside of the top 4 seeds winning the conference tournament. So if it all winds up that way, the league has done a good job getting quality wins in the non-conference. If they're able to do this again later in the season and pick up quality wins and kind of distribute that, I think they can reasonably get at least 3 or 4 bids into the NCAA tournament. So not only just bids, but teams that can also win a game or two. So that's a fun league, and they've been doing a really good job so far.
Yeah, for sure. And then kind of some more mid-major teams. I think we've talked about SMU's guests coming on. We'll talk about SMU specifically in the American, but also Central Florida got a huge win. Johnny Dawkins, they beat Florida State. So we'll talk about that win. And then Houston has looked early on like one of the best teams in the country, and they haven't even been at full strength. They're returning leading scorer more or less, or their preseason player of the year, Caleb Mills, really hasn't played and contributed this season yet, and they've still played at a high level where they look like a top 5 team. So talk a little bit about the American Conference with SMU, Central Florida, Memphis, and also Penny Hardaway just signed a recent contract extension. Congratulations to Penny. So talk a little bit about the American Conference as one of the other mid-majors.
Yeah, the American's been pretty interesting as well. Houston's probably the top team over there right now, and even though Kelvin Sampson has said himself that he doesn't think that the Cougars deserve the ranking that they have right now, it's still a team that's going to get after it defensively, and it's another group that has done a pretty good job scoring the ball so far. They have already 2 quality wins over Boise State and Texas Tech. They got another one against South Carolina. But this team, it was just reported recently that all 15 players and also a good portion of the staff had tested positive for COVID-19, and they had to go on a 2-week break after that South Carolina win. Came back against Alcorn State, just dominated that matchup. And you can say what you want about the opposition, but Still, to go away for 2 weeks and come back and put together a strong 40 minutes, I think that says a lot about where Houston's at right now. And it's a league that's going to be tough. And I think you still have your top tier of teams. Houston and SMU have been really strong, but you also have a lot of these other programs that have notched some quality wins so far. I think now you can't necessarily count out Wichita State. Been doing a good job there under Isaac Brown, filling in for Greg Marshall now. That's a team that's looked pretty strong so far. Tulsa going on the road and beating Memphis like that was really impressive. They've had some close contests against some good teams. The league just top to bottom, UCF picking up quality wins. South Florida's been pretty strong. East Carolina, which is often the bottom feeder in this conference, they're off to a 6-1 start. Jaden Gardner is a really strong player there. And Cincinnati, they're 2-4, but if you look at their schedule, who they've played so far, Xavier, Tennessee, Georgia, South Florida. I don't think the 2-4 record really shows how good Cincinnati is, and I think that as the season goes along, they should probably be in more of the mix of the American than it looks right now because they've just played a really tough schedule.
Yeah, I got a curious comment or slash topic, and America definitely looks good as we talked about, but Coach Cal, right? So they're struggling. And I'm curious your take on this from a media perspective. So Coach Cal, who I think everybody respects to one degree or another, whether you think he's a good coach, whether you think he's a good recruiter, whether you just think he understands how to win and market, whatever it may be, right? Whatever your take is on him. Recently let a player go or dismissed him temporarily or put him on some type of a pause so he can refocus himself, step away from the team so he doesn't impact the culture, which no problem so much with that. But I'm curious your take on this. Certain coaches, when they lose, it's their fault. And certain coaches, when they lose, it's the media's fault. Or excuse me, it's the rankings people's fault and it's the players' fault. And this year, it seems like, and I'm not saying this is coming directly from Coach Cal, I'm a little surprised he hasn't taken more of the ownership himself and said what he needs to do with this team. But it seems like the media has more so targeted players or ranking services that overrated some of these players rather than just saying Cal's not doing a great job this year. It seems like that. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I mean, the Kentucky situation is really bizarre this season. It's the first thing that I will always mention with this team, currently 1-5, but you'd be hard pressed to find any teams in the nation that has played a schedule this challenging. So, I mean, when you have a roster top to bottom that is as good as Kentucky's and they're 1-5, I think it can kind of be blown out of proportion a little bit. And they have a game at Louisville this coming weekend, so they could reasonably be 1-6. Which would easily be their worst start in at least 100 years. But, going back to your question, I think that it is kind of interesting when it comes to some of these really high-level coaches. And you look at, say, Calipari or Coach K or Jim Boeheim, a lot of these coaches who have such a track record of success that when their teams fail, I think it's almost like an unconscious feeling that you have to imagine like, well, it must have been the players who have messed up, not the coaches, because the coaches have been doing this for 3 decades. How could they mess up? But sometimes it just doesn't click, and I'd like to hear your perspective on this as well. But I think sometimes with these teams that are meshing so many different parts together, if you have 8 freshmen, a couple of transfers, only 1 returning guy, you can't find a coach in the country that's going to just whip that together in a couple weeks and call it good, especially with just an unusual off season that we've had. So I don't know. I think I disagree with Calipari with how he handled this. I don't think that this should have been made public. I don't really, again, I'd like to get your perspective, but I don't really know what is gained from creating a Twitter thread saying that a player needs to take time off and saying that this player needs to do some soul searching. I don't really understand what that accomplishes. It kind of almost focuses on the blame just on Cam Fletcher. as opposed to saying that, we're a team, we need to get better. I think it puts negative light on Fletcher, who probably doesn't even need any more negative light right now. He's probably lost more games in the past 3 weeks than he has in years. So I don't agree with how he handled it. I think that the team will get better as the year goes along, but I'd like to hear your perspective on that as well from someone who's a former coach.
Yeah, Big Blue Nation is a different type of media coverage, right? So I don't even have an idea of what being under that kind of microscope is like. However, I'm just surprised again. Cal he's successful, right? He's won a national championship. He has an abundance of pros, always has a top recruiting class. And before we keep going even on this, I will say no one even talks about the absence of Kenny Payne, right? Kenny Payne's a guy who went to the NBA with the New York Knicks, really good basketball coach, although he's only seen as a recruiter. Somebody who is the one who develops and cultivates relationships behind the scenes to then help those players make that transition, right? And he's done it for years and years. And so I think there's a big glue piece that's missing there that does matter. I think no one's talking about that. So credit to Kenny Payne for how instrumental he was to Kentucky's success. But I'm disappointed that he's taken the approach he has. Even if you just say, he had to take some time off for personal reasons, whatever. But to kind of make it almost like he needs to do some soul searching.
Yeah.
It just, and again, I don't know the inside dynamic. There's obviously, when you do anything in that fishbowl that it's going to be blown up because you're Big Blue Nation. So you knew what that meant when you did that. So I'm just surprised that he hasn't taken more ownership or even just public, like, hey, this is on me, these guys. Because normally that's kind of his approach, is to take the players back. Hey, we're young. He's kind of always spinning it, right? But this time he's not in it that way. I'm a little surprised. I do think they'll get going. I do think as a coach, you're always trying to find ways to hold your guys accountable and motivate them. And I think it's probably tough when you have all those highly rated guys and you didn't have the normal offseason, didn't have the normal summer, you didn't have the scrimmages, you didn't have the exhibition. So for that level and that place, and you have that many young guys, you need those extra reps and those test runs to work all the kinks out. So anyway, we got a question from the audience. John Weisbrod asks, hello, John. How you doing, man? Good to see you. I coach John's son, who was a 2-time first-team all-conference player at Lamar and was also a junior college All-American. How about the article about the Southland joining with the WAC? And the article includes Lamar, SFA, Abilene, and Sam Houston. Yes, from my understanding, there is an offer on the table to Stephen F. Austin. They have not accepted or denied yet. There is also talk about those teams you mentioned, John. My understanding is that there is also some possibility for Stephen F. Austin to be looking at some other conferences to join as well. So who knows? I think that, these things, I remember it wasn't too long ago when I was leaving the Mountain West. I'm sure you remember this, Eli, that Gonzaga was talking about coming to the Mountain West, right? And it was almost like this power play of negotiations to hold the WCC to a higher standard of how they did things with Gonzaga. It's like, hey, we can leave if you're not going to do things a certain way. I don't know if that's the case with this, but I do think it definitely is probably putting the Southland on a watch to increase or improve whatever they may be having going on. So I'm curious your thoughts on it, or if you've seen any of the articles, or what your take is.
Yeah, well, you brought up a great point there with Gonzaga, and I thought that was a pretty prominent example of a program that can use their level as some sort of leverage within a conference. And I think there probably was some sort of mutual interest there between Gonzaga and the Mountain West. But I think in large part, a program like Gonzaga, which is so successful in the WCC, can try to use that type of realignment activity as a way to, as you put it, to try to improve their own standing within the conference, whether it's in marketing or with TV network deals, things like that. This isn't to suggest that that's what's going on with the Southland and the WAC deal. I think that those programs have had legitimate, sustained success in that conference. But I always kind of take realignment news with a grain of salt because I mean we hear teams every year that are involved in some sort of talk about maybe joining a conference or maybe join another league. But I think with this, it seems pretty real in the sense that the WAC has been one of the most aggressive conferences in terms of adding new teams. They've had several non D1 programs in recent years. Off the top of my head, I've got Cal Baptist and Dixie State. I think Tarleton State's over there, if I'm not mistaken, another team that's transferring to Division I basketball. And I think New Mexico State is the only program that's been in there for, at least 10 years or so, if even that long. So the WAC has had a lot of turnover with their membership. And if they're able to land Abilene Christian and Stephen F. Austin, in addition to the other programs that are mentioned there, I think that would be really good for the league overall. Abilene Christian has gone from a team that is often the bottom feeder or has often been one of the worst teams in Division One programs in the last few years when they transitioned to Division One. But Joe Golding has done a really good job, and now they're a team that can legitimately compete for NCAA tournaments. And we all know what Stephen F. Austin has done. The Lumberjacks have been one of the better mid-majors now for about a decade. That's where Brad Underwood came from before he transitioned to Oklahoma State. Kyle Keller's been there for a number of years, and we're just 13 months removed from when this team went into Cameron Indoor and beat Duke there. So I think that would be really cool for the WAC to land these programs. I think it would do a lot to elevate their conference and their basketball profile. But again, realignment can be fuzzy, and until actual negotiations and handshakes are made, I think that there's a lot of different things that could happen. But I'd be intrigued by a league in the WAC that had, New Mexico State, Cal Baptist has been good, Grand Canyon's interesting, and then if you want to join in with some of these Southland programs and Stephen F. Austin and Abilene Christian, I think that'd be a really fun league that could be pretty entertaining basketball out west.
Yeah, speaking of pretty entertaining basketball, we have our first guest on, assistant coach from SMU, that will be on in just 30 seconds after this quick break. I want to take time to acknowledge one of our partners, Rising Coaches. Every coach wants to rise in their career in one way or another. We're all looking for professional development, access to tools, and relationships that can help us grow and help us advance in our career. Rising Coaches provides just that. You can visit Rising Coaches at www.risingcoaches.com. Their memberships are just $10 a month and provides a genuine community to help you grow and advance in your career. Coach King, what up, man? Great to have you on.
How's it going, man? It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Excited, man. Excited to have you, man. So I'll kick it off a little bit. You guys are undefeated. Talk a little bit about the squad. Talk a little bit about the start to the season.
I'm gonna need you guys to knock on wood before we go any further. Now you kind of I don't need any television jinx or anything right now. The team's doing well. We've got a group of guys that are excited and hungry. A lot of veterans returning on our team. It's kind of really put us in a really unique position to be able to have some retention from last year, knowing the season shut down in March, and being able to get back on board July, being able to work out and stuff, and with some of the how erratic the off season has been, to be able to get our guys going. But we have a great team. Our guys are doing well. We're led by Kendrick Davis, one of the best point guards in the country, and we've got a great supporting cast of guys that are committed, and I think they're focused and locked in and ready to take the next step of competing for a conference championship.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned Kendrick Davis. There's a point guard that played there not too long ago under Larry Brown, who is really special to the SMU basketball fan base, and also just a guy who he just changed the trajectory of the program and where it was going. And he was a smaller guy, a guy who kind of had a chip on his shoulder. I'm sure the SMU fans have talked a lot about him. I'll let you kind of go into that. But how does Kendrick compare, and what do the fans say about kind of what that magical run that gentleman had, and how do they compare it to what Kendrick is doing right now?
Well, I know one of the things I'm probably a bit disappointed about is talented and as good as this team is, we're not able to fill the arena up in Moody and really put on a show
Right,
for our
right.
to be able to see. So that's really disappointing. But Nick Moore was a very special basketball player, one of the great SMU players of all time. Had just an uncanny knack for winning basketball games, hitting big shots. Was just a consummate student athlete when he was at SMU. Kendrick and he have some similarities. They're both, smaller guards, but they're just tenacious competitors. And I think that's where those comparisons kind of line up. Those guys both just love to win. They love to compete. They love to be in the gym. And they love to win and lead their teams to victory. So I think in a lot of regards, they're both similar. Nick was an unbelievable scorer, where Kendrick, I think, has just an uncanny ability to be able to find people on the court. Very tough defender. Just as a guy that just is always looking and seeking out ways to get better is one of my favorite things about Kendrick. Super coachable, just wants to win, wants to learn, and he's willing to take in the coaching, which is a big thing. You don't rarely get guys as good as he is that are receptive to coaching to the level that he is.
What's been the key, do you think, so far with Kendrick's development? Because he hasn't always been of this caliber. I mean, he's really taken, a linear growth to become one of the better point guards in America. Is there something that stands out to you that's allowed him to kind of take on this development to become the player he is now?
Yeah, I definitely think that Kendrick was smart in selecting a school that fit him the best. I think oftentimes guys go out and attempt to find a school that may win the press conference, that makes you feel good, it gives you the warm and fuzzies, but it may not necessarily be the greatest fit for you. And I think Kendrick found a school that was an unbelievable fit for him, where he was able to get the ball in his hands and have command of a team very early on in his career. And he responded with that by working hard. He didn't just take it and just say, hey, I've got it, and take it for granted, but he worked hard. He watched a lot of film. Like I said, he's constantly in the gym, did the extra work that he needed to do physically. And then I think the other portion of it is he was also receptive to the things that he needed to do to learn how to lead a team emotionally and physically as well, too. So I think those are some of the things that really allowed him to be able to take off early on.
And what do you think has been the key for, guys on this team that aren't him, just outside of the point guard slot? What do you think has allowed this team to kind of take the step up and get off to this quick start?
Yeah, again, I think we have some veteran leadership coming back. I mean, we have Ferron Hunt, who's a very talented forward for us, and who's just got oozing potential. Ethan Shaguar, who's just as skilled as any guy in our country, in the country, and especially in our league. Just being about 6'9", being able to pass and do a lot of different things. And then Isaiah Jacy, who's been kind of an unsung person for us, because he's big, he's physical, he's tough, he leads, he competes every day, brings a great attitude. And just in college basketball right now, man, the best teams are the older teams, the most experienced teams. And if you look across our roster, it's littered with juniors, sophomores, seniors. Emmanuel Bandameo has been a great surprise for us. He hit the buzzer beater at Dayton this year, which was unbelievable. He had a big-time buzzer beater against Houston last year. And so we just have all of these pieces that are kind of coming back, and the ups and downs that you have through the previous years. Those guys have kind of taken those and said, you know what, we don't want to be like last year's team. We want to take the next step. And the next step for those guys was just literally caring about winning and competing. That's it.
Do you think that this transition's been a lot easier, especially in the strange off season that we've had? Do you think that transition's a lot easier for these guys when they know who they're playing with, they have familiar with these guys? And I mean, your rotation is almost all juniors and seniors, so there is that familiarity.
Yeah, I definitely. And I think one of the biggest things too is that, when guys come back and they have, that experience, it's not just the experience of playing basketball games, but it's also experience of the system. It's also experience of going to class. It's also experience of being able to deal with the coach, being able to figure out what it is that he's looking for that kind of makes that team flow and gel. And I think that we've got an experienced group of guys that kind of understand that. They know the things that are important to my head coach, Coach Jankovic, and they go after him. And, he's been harping them all year about being tough and about defending, about rebounding, about really the kind of the particulars that kind of go unnoticed in basketball that will signify a winning championship program.
And you mentioned on the defensive side, that's something that's kind of stood out for me. I think SMU is somewhere around 200 in defensive efficiency last season, but it's really taken off. I think it's somewhere around top 50 now. Is there something that stands out to you as a staff that this team has done the first couple of weeks that has improved there?
Yeah, there is, but I don't want to tell you guys because I'm not sure if anybody else in the league is listening. No, but I just think the big deal is that you just have to keep people accountable. At the end of the day, guys have to be accountable. And I think our guys have been receptive to being accountable, because there are times in the past where, you say, hey, you got to get over across the midline and you got to rotate and take this charge. And guys just kind of, but I think guys are committed to it. I've seen guys rotate over and taking charges. I've seen guys walling up and taking tough blows to the chest and just doing all the physical, nasty stuff, because they understand last year that cost us wins. I mean, we had 7 or 8 very close games that could have went either way. And if we would have just done those little things, I think those guys are aware, and we're definitely aware of it, that we would have won those games. And so they don't want to make those same mistakes they did last year.
Do you think that overall the team has done a good job getting through this offseason? I'm curious to hear what it's been like for you guys. We've had people on this show talking about, relocating different campuses or just trying to scramble for scheduling. Just what has this been like for you in just such an unusual time in college basketball? And I'm just curious where your program has been at with that.
Yeah, there's no real true formula for this. At the end of the day, I think the approach that we've taken is no one cares. If you get shut down for 14 days and you got to play a basketball game, nobody cares. I think the deal for us a little bit is just to go out there. If we got 5, 6, 7 guys, however many guys on the court, we're going to line up, we're going to compete, and we're going to play our butts off. And that's really the only thing that people care about right now, and results. And so it has been a little bit uncomfortable. It has been a little bit difficult. But, to be great, you have to be able to thrive in some uncomfortable and uncharted territories and waters.
Coach, talk about a couple of things, right? So let's be honest. All right, just the streets have tried to say SMU's on the hot seat, and now you flip the hot seat and now become one of the hottest teams in the country. Even Kelvin Sampson said the other day, I think that you guys are underrated or don't sleep on SMU, or however he worded it. But you guys are an NCAA tournament team as of now. I won't jinx it, we'll knock on wood, but it looks every bit of an NCAA tournament team. And so talk a little bit about Coach Jankovic. I know him well. I'm from Dallas, so that's home. What a great human being, first of all. Loves ball, a gym rat as far as basketball goes, loves and has had success before he was at SMU, had success right away at SMU. And then people kind of get confused and it's easy to kind of get sidetracked and maybe not give the credit when it's due. But what a great job he did turn around last year, and then now this year to be picking up where you guys left off. Just talk a little bit about Coach Jankovic and what makes him great.
I think one of Coach Jank's greatest strengths is his attention to detail. When we go out there and we talk about basketball, we cover a lot of stuff in depth and thoroughly, but we only do that amongst the staff. What we give to the players and what we give to the team is the stuff that they can digest. And it's up to us to break down and kind of figure out what it is that our team can handle and what they can digest. And I think Coach Jankovic has done an unbelievable job of giving our guys exactly what they need and what they can handle and what they can digest, from a scouting report, from a practice standpoint, even from an offensive and a defensive perspective. I think it's been unbelievable. And I think one of the great things I've really enjoyed about working for Coach Jank is that I know he cares about the guys and he cares about us as people, even on his staff. I think sometimes in this business, there's a lot of things that can kind of get misconstrued. And we think that certain things are important and winning that aren't important. At the end of the day, having your staff, having great communication, having great relationships, those things are very important. He cares about our families. He asks about them. He's very cautious of our time, to making sure that we have time to spend time with our families and things that are important, because, we all kind of get in this thing and we think this is the only thing. But at the end of the day, if we won a bunch of championships and we haven't developed great relationships with each other, great relationships with our players, and even having great relationships with our families, man, we really have not won at all. We've actually really lost.
Right. He's just a tremendous person and doesn't big himself, just an everyday guy, and gets the bigger picture of what this thing's about. And excited to see you guys having so much success. Let's talk about that first seat. You've been in that first seat. You sat in that first seat as a head coach, junior college. I've had the pleasure of knowing you, Coach King, since his JUCO days, since we both were in the Southland. He was at Corpus Christi and I was at Lamar. So, you've rose through this business kind of from the bottom up. Talk a little bit about your journey, and then you've also played, so you can share those experiences as a player, as a Division I player, at a high level player. You can share those with your players. Talk a little bit about your journey, Coach, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So I call St. Petersburg, Florida home. I've been well traveled. call St. Petersburg, Florida. I played junior college basketball at Redlands Community College for 2 years. I won a Division II national championship. The following year, we moved up to Division I, qualified for Hutch. Had a very good career there. Played with some great players. Had a tremendous learning experience about basketball. It was a great chance for me because it was the first time for me I got a chance to find out what winning on a high level was about and what it took. And so those are some of the things that I applied just kind of through my own personal journey. But from Redlands Community College, I played basketball at Cal State Fullerton for 2 years. We went to the NIT my senior year. We were the third team selected to play postseason basketball. So that was really a big deal. And in that time, the Big West was a monster. Pacific was going to the Sweet 16 every year. Or was going to the Sweet 16. Utah State was a perennial top 25 borderline program every year. So it was a really tough league at that time. And so we were in there. We were probably the third best team that year, and we did a very good job. Had a lot of fun, played with some great players. Bobby Brown's playing the NBA. Frank Robinson's a borderline NBA basketball player, had a great career overseas. Pop So played in the NBA. So I was fortunate enough to play with some good players. Played professionally overseas for a year in Austria, and I came back and got into junior college coaching. Coaching was something that I've always wanted to do. There was times in my life where there were things that I wasn't aware of. I didn't know. I didn't have the proper mentorship and the guidance that I wanted. And for me, getting into coaching was a way for me to give back. And so from there, I was an assistant at Redlands for a year. I went to Cali County for another year. During those times, that's kind of where I met Brian. He and I were on the road battling, doing a little recruiting. I remember he beat me out on the NBA kid. What's his name? That went to play in the NBA for the Houston Rockets. What's his name, Brian? He's just Jonathan Simmons.
Jonathan Simmons. Yep.
Jonathan Simmons played for you, I think, at Paris. Was it Paris?
Yep.
He played for you at Paris. He was a heck of a player. And he did a really good job. I remember those days sitting in those hot gyms down in Houston, man. And those were the days where, there wasn't the cell phones and all this kind of stuff like that. You just would kind of call somebody up, Hicks or somebody down there in Houston, and somebody give you a lead and tip you off, and you'd be sitting in the gym watching, hoping nobody else walks in, and Brian's sitting there, I'm walking in, or somebody else from some other places walking in. And so, you're kind of just hoping nobody knows who you're looking at. And obviously, at the end of the day, it's like 5-6 coaches lined up trying to persuade this one really good basketball player to attend your junior college. But from there, those 2 years after Cali County, I was fortunate enough to become the head coach at Redlands Community College. And I like to joke, I like to say the worst boss I ever had was myself. There's some pretty good people. I like to say the worst boss I had for myself was myself. When I went to Redlands was a very different job when I got it from when I played. When I got the job, the funding was not nearly the same. When I operated on one full scholarship, I was basically in a league where people were able to give full scholarships from housing, books, tuition, fees, meals. And I was only able to give out books and tuition, and was able to battle and hustle and grind that job. And I mean, I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about people and kids during that time. I found out that if you do things the right way and you invest in people, that it'll reward you. I remember being there, and people were really loved the way that we operated, the way that we did things for our guys in terms of getting them to the next level. That kids literally said, hey, man, we just want to come play for you. We'll books, tuition, fees. That's fine. We want to come play. I'll find my own place to live. And guys hustled and grinded. And in my second full year, we were able to make it to the national tournament at Hutchinson Community College, which was unbelievable, man. It was an unbelievable experience. Our guys won the Region 2 league. That was back when you had to win the league tournament to be able to get to the National Junior College Tournament, which was a great experience. And 2 years later, I became an assistant coach at Texas A&M Corpus Christi, working for a guy by the name of Willis Wilson. And Willis was an unbelievable mentor and friend to me during my time there. Again, like, to me, I like to say a lot of the things that I'm experiencing right now in my career is because there was somebody that took the time to invest in me as a person during the time when I was on staff with them. And I really appreciated my experience with him at Texas A&M Corpus Christi. And our first year, that was a tough year. We won 6 games. The next year we won 18. The next year we won 20. And then we won 25 after that. And we were competing for conference championships every year. So it was really exciting time. I really enjoyed that. From there, I was at Louisiana Tech working for Eric Conkle. And Eric was an unbelievable coach that I worked for. He did an unbelievable job of just letting the guys play freely, giving them tons of confidence to be able to go out there and compete. And then from there, I was there for 3 years, and I landed at SMU, enjoying my second year. I think for me, a little bit, some of the stuff that you hear people say this every year, if you're not winning anywhere, you're on a hot seat. So in college basketball, it's very it's very fickle. You got to go out there and you've got to compete. You've got to put your best team forward. And if you're not competing for conference championships with the amount of resources that these schools are putting into coaches and staffs and programs, you're on a hot seat regardless. So really the whole goal for us is to win a championship every year. And for us, when we don't do that, we feel like we've fell short of our expectations. And so any expectations anybody else places on us, I mean, they're pale in comparison to what we put on ourselves.
No question. No question.
Well said, man.
Well said, man.
Great journey.
Great journey. I've been able to be a part of it, which has been great. I've been able to compete against you and win some of those battles, lose some of those battles, man. I can remember coaching at the at UTEP against you, coaching at Corpus Christi, or I was at Lamar, you at Corpus.
Yeah.
So we probably split on some of these battles and even the recruiting battles. But even back before then, we were at, I don't know if you remember this, a camp way back with Texas Blue Chips with Craig.
Oh, man, I do.
We got to hang out afterwards. I was like, yeah, this guy's pretty good after all, man. I like this guy. So so happy what you're doing, man. Happy for you and love what SMU is getting done right now. And looking at the NCAA tournament team and excited for what you guys will continue to do. And you have so many Texas guys in the roster, so I'm always biased towards that. But just tell us a funny story. I know you've been a head coach. You've been in a number of places. Tell us one funny story before you go. You
put me on the spot. You put me on the spot, man. I was in serious mode, and now you kind of put me on the spot. I've got to shift gear.
Hey, this is the fun mode right here. We got to have some holiday fun.
Yeah.
It could be a college basketball story or even a family a Christmas story since we're in the season.
Oh man, you got me on the spot, man. You jammed me up, man. I'm not clutch right now, man. I'm not clutch. I'm gonna shoot off the side of the backboard right now, man. My bad.
That's all right. That's all right. We got a few comments real quick. We got Daryl Jacobs says, "Great stuff, gentlemen. Appreciate that, Daryl J. Executive Director of the DI Alliance for Rising Coaches, my main man, and then John Weisbrod, who you coached against his son, he said, ask, so since you don't have a joke for us, ask who's the most influential person in your life, and we'll let you run.
The most influential person in my life. From a basketball standpoint to this point, I would say it had to be Willis, definitely, man. I'd like to give him the credit for that. I mean, again, like I said, he was just someone that invested in me during my time when I was at Corpus. And I would say that anybody that's in this business, if they ever had the opportunity to get a chance to sit down and speak with him, he has a wealth of information to share. And he's an unbelievable, not just a basketball coach, but one of the best people that I've met. Yep. And just kind of some of the philosophies and the things that I've learned from him just about dealing with people, about even some stuff about presenting yourself to people. I think those are some of the things that he really helped me out with that I really appreciate and I love him to death dearly for. And so he was one of the people that I would say just in my basketball career was one of the most influential people. So I'd definitely like to give him credit for that.
Yeah, he's phenomenal. He was actually one of the guests. We hosted the Social Justice Roundtable with Rising Coaches early on. He was one of the stars of the night, man. It was a time where everybody was trying to look for answers and figure out, like, man, how do we make sense of this? And I thought he was tremendous. And he's been phenomenal to me, even outside of during this pandemic. I'm in a group of coaches of faith, and he's one of the instrumental guys in that. So, great having you on, Coach. Tell the staff we said hello. Keep up the great work, man, and looking forward to how you guys keep the thing going in the next year.
I appreciate you guys having me on, man. It was a lot of fun. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Man.
Appreciate
Happy
it.
holidays. All right, we had Coach King from SMU and their undefeated start. Great talking to him. We got our first head coach. So excited. Another undefeated staff, another undefeated program. We got our first head coach on, and we will bring him on in just about 1 minute after this quick break.
Thank you for joining us for the All Access Coaches Corner podcast. We are so excited to continue serving coaches, sharing their stories, and spotlighting their programs. Stay connected as we bring you more special guests and more real conversations covering all aspects of the game. You can find our show on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you like to get your podcasts. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at allaccess_CC. Subscribe to the All Access Network YouTube channel and join us in the All Access Coaches Corner.
Yeah, really excited. Great job by Coach King. Again, a guy I've known for a long time, and so much respect for what he's doing and how he's climbed in this business and paid his dues and just rolled his sleeves up, man. One of the good guys in the business, and excited to see the SMU doing so well. We got a quick comment from Corey Michael Henderson, head coach in Dallas of Episcopal School of Dallas. Willis is a great man. I got my first scholarship offer from Rice when he was an assistant coach for Coach Thompson, and then Coach Willis went on to be the head coach at Rice and had some great success as well. So I'm thrilled, man. We have our first head coach on the show, undefeated. I don't think this team has got enough national conversation, so we're going to try to give them a little more and just give them the love that they deserve. But what a tremendous job they have done. What a great job the head coach has done, and I'm excited to just bring him in and quit talking. But we got the undefeated head coach, Lamont Paris of UT Chat. We're going to bring him on. Coach, how you doing?
Hey, Brian, I'm good. I'm good today. How you feeling today?
Doing very well, man. Doing very well. I know I'm not feeling as good as you because you're undefeated, even though I'm undefeated in my own way, but nobody knows. I'm not no games to play this year, so that's a good thing. But let's talk about your team. We'll get straight to it. Let's talk about your team. This show is kind of a heat check show. You guys are on fire, so tell us what makes your team so good.
Yeah, it's been interesting because we've had right now we got 8 players available to play. It's been that number's varied. We've had some injuries and whatnot. So, but we've just had a bunch of guys that, a couple of jacks of all trade, masters of none, that buy into what we're doing and have been, disciplined on the defensive end and then, play pretty freely on the offensive end. So it's worked out well. They've come together. We've got guys playing out of position. We've got a lot of things going on, but it's worked. It's worked well. It's been a good combination. They've played hard. They've believed in each other. They've listened and their attention to detail has been really good. So, we've just been finding a way. It hasn't always been, a work of art, but guys have just found a way. And I think that characteristic is something that is the most underrated thing and probably the most important thing in sports is just being able to find a way one way or another, just make a way to get it done. So it's been fun. I've been along for the ride. I'm proud of them and happy for them.
Right. You mentioned kind of a limited roster. You mentioned finding a way. Talk a little bit about your background before getting to this position, because we know how hard it is to get head coaching positions and then just to get it turned to where you can have the success you're having now. Talk a little bit about your journey before we talk more about the team, if you don't mind, and you finding a way.
Yeah, my path has been, it's been a lot of stops along the way. I've been doing this in one way, shape, or form since I graduated college in 1996. I've had full-time jobs, part-time jobs. My goal always was to turn jobs that somebody didn't want into a job that everybody wanted. And so, I've done it at every level from the Division III level, Division II level, Division I mid-major level, Division I high major level. Been to back-to-back Final Fours when I was with Wisconsin. We played in the NCAA tournament every year for the 7 years I was there. The one commonality in all that is that we had a lot of success every stop along the way. And, so you look at what factors influence how you think and how you believe and how you run practices and what you like to do. And the biggest thing is just the places I've been, we've always won. And so I've taken a lot of things with that. But yeah, so again, I coached started off coaching Division III, at the College of Worcester where I played, which is a perennial power. The head coach there is in the NABC Hall of Fame. So coached Division III, coached Division II, went to the Final Four in Division II, was at Akron under head coach Keith Dambrot, who's now the head coach at Duquesne, who's done a tremendous job there. He's a really good coach. Learned some things there, and then I was able to get to the University of Wisconsin in the Big Ten. Was there for 7 years, and I worked with a guy that, again, another guy that's in the Hall of Fame, and he probably doesn't get as much credit as he should for doing the most with the talent that he had. And we had good players, don't get me wrong, but on a night-to-night basis, this guy was able to inspire these guys to achieve at such a high level. And so those are the things that I've used to help shape me and get to where I am today. But yeah, had an opportunity to get down here to Chattanooga and be the head coach down here. And It's such a good city and a great university, and the weather change wasn't bad either, going from Madison, Wisconsin to Chattanooga, Tennessee. We're only 2 hours from Atlanta now. We're only 2 hours from Atlanta down here, so I got no complaints. I tell everybody up there I'm never coming back. So, but yeah, so it's been a lot of fun. It's been what a great learning process. I'm a lifelong learner. I always want to be learning, and I think if you're not doing that, you're making a mistake. But it's been a lot of fun, and I feel blessed to work with the young men and help them in the position that I have, and so feel really fortunate.
Right. No, that's awesome, Coach. Appreciate you sharing that. And I'll kind of get a little bit off your team and stay on you for one more second and then go back to your team. But just the process, if you don't mind. So we've had a ton of assistant coaches on. Obviously, we know the climate of college basketball and the disparity of opportunities for minority head coaches. So we like to keep it real on the show. We like to get straight to the point and real topics. But how hard was that opportunity to get, and now you're killing it, so that part is awesome. So it's easy to talk about the success now, but how hard was it to get in that position, and what do you think you were able to do in order to put yourself in that position, and what advice do you have for other guys who are assistant coaches like you were that are trying to get in your shoes?
Yeah, I think it's very difficult. I think it's difficult for anybody, but for minorities and African Americans, the numbers would suggest, and I've lived it for a long time. It's a difficult thing. Again, I was at Wisconsin for 7 years, and we were in the NCAA tournament every year. The worst we did, we lost in the first round one year. Every other year, we were Sweet 16 or better. You look at some programs, they've never been to the high major teams have never been to the Sweet 16. Back-to-back Final Fours. We were 4 or 5 minutes away from winning a national championship. And the only reason why I say that is because with that resume and pedigree, that translates into typically into jobs. That's the next thing. You've shown what you've done, where you've been, that you're capable, and you're the hot name, the hot team. And for minorities, a lot of times it just doesn't happen the same way, or the quality of job that you get is not, it's not the same. So I think the best advice I can give is just to have perseverance and to do your job the best that you possibly can. Make your head coach's job as easy as it can. Take as much off of his plate. Allow him to coach games, solve problems before problems arise. Learn everything you can about the game. Take notes on how your head coach asks or acts. There'll be things that you want to take. There'll be things that you don't want to take, and make sure you don't do that because you see how players respond to that. I think that stuff's just as important as saying, I'm going to take this play. You're not going to win because of some magical play you have. You look at Kentucky, they probably got the same plays now as they had a couple of years ago. But when you're doing it with Willie Cauley-Stein and all those guys, Devin Brooks, it's a different thing. So I would say perseverance. That's the number one thing. Keep your backyard clean. That's another thing. You can't possibly give anyone a reason to not hire you. Oftentimes, that's what people are going to – a job opens up, there are going to be 1,000 candidates. And so the first thing that they look at that they say, particularly with minorities, wow, he hasn't done this, or he has this on his deal. Don't give anyone dot I's, cross T's. Do the best job you possibly can in your job. Don't be looking for the next job. Make your job as good as it can possibly be. Even if it's a job that you think no one wants, make it into a job that everybody wants. Bring attention to it, because how you perform your job, no matter what your role is or how small you think your role is or how trivial a task might be, you got to shine in that role. That's it. You have to shine in that role. And if you persevere and you have good character, I honestly believe good things come eventually. It might not, your timeline might be a little bit different than what it actually works out to be. But again, you just have to persevere, do the best that you can, take the good with the bad, keep your head down, grind, and then and learn. Constantly learning, constantly stretching, constantly evaluating yourself as to what you're doing, how you're doing it, how you could do it better, how effective is it, how do the guys respond to it. I think that's a real important component of improving as an individual. So
No doubt. No doubt. Well said, Coach. Appreciate that. We got a quick comment. We got good stuff. Preaching. You got the fist up, Coach Leary. I'll get out of the way and let Eli. I want to take over the whole thing, so I'll let Eli jump in a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I just really like your perspective on this, going from the D3 level, going up to, a high major in Wisconsin. And I'm curious from your perspective, before we kind of dive into the team and conference and things like that, do you kind of see part of this, part of your development and kind of this responsibility to be better every day? Do you kind of see that in your players? And as a staff, how do you teach your players, especially at the mid-major level, where they might have a chip on their shoulder, or they might feel like they've been overlooked? Are you able to use your perspective in the coaching world to try to talk to them and try to encourage them in a similar way?
Yeah, I am. In fact, I think it's my number one responsibility. I happen to be coaching basketball, but I try to teach them some things about life and just handling situations through basketball. But we talk about looking in the mirror all the time and seeing what, in that reflection, you have to really see what it is. If I look in the mirror and I feel like I'm in great physical condition, but in reality, I need to lose 20 pounds, I have to see that. Otherwise, I'm not going to do the things that I need to do to lose those 20 pounds, because they're not going to be easy. So we're constantly talking about seeing yourself for what it is now. It's okay to be where you are today, as long as tomorrow you're closer to where you want to be, as far as how you're working and what you're doing. So we're constantly reminding guys on that. We praise them when they need praise, but we also tell them the truth in a real way, to where they're motivated if they have their goals, and their work ethic has to match their goals, and so that they start moving towards that way. But yeah, so they have a chip on their shoulder, but I'd say the biggest thing is they're really realistic about where they are right now and what they're good at and what they need work on. And so we spend more time on what they're good at, right? And so you were recruited for certain things. You have deficiencies, you have strengths. No one gets recruited for their deficiencies. You get recruited for your strengths. So when we play, I try to play each guy in a way that when they get out on the court, it's catered towards their strengths. And that's what we're highlighting. And don't do things that your deficiencies that show your deficiencies. Just stay away from those altogether, rather than saying, hey, make your weakness into your strength. I don't know how. I mean, that's a difficult thing to do oftentimes, right? How about this? Let's stay away from the weakness until it actually is a strength. And in the meantime, let's concentrate on the strengths and let those shine. And that's why you're out there. So, but anyway, to get back to your question, we talk as a staff a lot, and I talk a lot to our guys about constantly learning, constantly improving, getting better day to day. That's been our mantra for the year. I use Tiger Woods as an example. He's won tournaments, he's won major tournaments, and been disappointed in his overall performance, even though he came in first, right? We talk about playing against the course. You're not playing against the other guys that are there. You're playing against the course, and in this case, the game of basketball. How did you perform relative to what you're capable of performing? Not relative to just the other team, but relative to what the energy that you can provide and how well you can play. And so, I think that's resonated with the guys, and it's seemingly has struck a chord and has inspired a different level of work ethic for them.
And when you talk about the strengths of this roster, I know the roster as a whole, a lot of these guys have come from different places, particularly transfers. What have you seen in them kind of as a collective group that makes it special and the reason that you're off to this 8-0 start?
Yeah, a couple things. One non-basketball thing really is that we have a collection of guys that don't really care that much who's doing what, We don't have a lot of guys that I feel like I have to draw up a bunch of plays for so that they get 8 shots a game. And this guy gets this. And so I think that's probably the most critical and important non-real basketball factor that's allowed us to do what we're doing right now. And they enjoy playing with each other. I think that's really important too. But as far as basketball goes, we've got a skilled team. We're versatile. We can play in a lot of different ways. Sometimes we run a lot of sets. Other times we don't. We play freely. We've been able to go inside and outside. I'd say our biggest strength right now maybe is shooting the ball from the 3-point line. We've got a lot of guys that can do that. And so I think it opens up the floor, and the ability to shoot. I've always thought the ability to shoot makes a mediocre athlete, as far as driving and attacking the rim, into a better athlete, because you have to respect that shot in a way that you don't have to respect it for an average shooter. So, I'd say the biggest thing, our biggest strength from an offensive standpoint is our ability to shoot the ball. And then defensively, I think we've been more connected and committed to our particular rules and our discipline on the defensive end than we have in recent years.
Coach, talk a little about how challenging it is to coach in this pandemic, and then share anything about your program or anything about the mid-major level that you just want people to know more about.
The challenges in this pandemic, holy smokes, it's amazing. And we're grown in our lives, and so it's challenging for us as adults, as employees, as parents, as spouses. But for these kids, it's amazing what they have gone through, and just the deviation from their norm. And they like norm. They're comfortable in norm, and the inability to have face-to-face interaction and communication with other people on their campus, in their classes. There have been so many challenges. Challenges with the roster that's depleted. If you have a couple of guys with COVID or are in quarantine, and then you have one or two guys that get hurt. Your roster's down. So a ton of challenges that these guys have gone through. Scheduling. I remember we started the season, we had 2 games that were canceled due to COVID, and we ended up playing, we subbed the game in on 48 hours notice. We got another game. And so you're talking scouting report, you're talking all that stuff that you normally would do. You're in unfamiliar territory. We played 4 games in 7 days. Just to get the games in. It's been a lot of different things. You spend half your day scheduling these days. So a lot of different challenges, and while as adults we're probably more equipped to handle them, these guys, it's a big challenge for them. So I think you have to constantly be working with them to do that. And then what was the second part of your question again? Sorry.
Anything about your program or the mid-major level in general that you just want people to know or you'd want to share, because, again, it's one of those levels that just doesn't get the same love, but doesn't mean that guys can't play or that it's not still a high level. And same with your plays. It's not maybe Tennessee and Knoxville, but UT Chat dudes can play, at a high level. So
no doubt.
Share in general.
There's no doubt. There's the level of play at this, the quality of basketball and the quality of player at this level is I think people don't get to see it as much because maybe they're not on TV as much, and you don't have the Big Ten ACC challenge that's on ESPN, or the Big Ten's playing 4 days games on Christmas Day, so you don't see that. But if you look at it, there's a couple ways to show this. One, you look at most high major rosters at this stage, they've got one or more guys from this level, and oftentimes those guys are a dude for that team, and it's because these guys have been seasoned, they've been playing, they've gotten experiences early, and they're good basketball players. I mean, it's good basketball, it's competitive. The overall talent of our league, if you look at our league, the Southern Conference, over the last few years, we've had some high major. A bunch of our teams have beaten high major teams on the road, and oftentimes pretty handily, considering it's a high major team. And so, I just want people to know what the quality. And I was at the high major for 7 years. Right, like we went to back-to-back Final Fours. I've seen it all. I've been to the highest level of basketball, and I'm surprised over and over at the depth of quality of player, team, and especially coaches at this level. There's some really, really good coaches at the mid-major level. So for people out there that are basketball junkies, You might have to sign up for the SoCon channel or Conference USA or the Horizon or any of those, Missouri Valley. If you want to see some really good competitive basketball and it's got some dudes, I urge you to go out there and sneak a peek at a lot of those teams in those games.
Right. Well said. I'll let my co-partner take the last one.
Yeah, we always like to end our segments with a fun story. So if you have any sort of fun story during your coaching career that you'd like to share with us, we're all ears.
A fun story
or fun, anything, comedy, anything. It can be family, it can be holiday, something. Just give us a little bit of humor before you roll.
I got some funny coaching stories. Some of those I don't know if they're. I have to edit them to put them.
That's what every coach says.
Yeah, I'll share this since it's Christmas. I will share this story. This was one of my early Christmas memories when I was young. And we were at preschool. It was preschool / it was Head Start is what it was. And I remember my dad was Santa Claus. And it's one of my fondest memories. I'll never forget it. And my dad came in, and I didn't know it was my dad at the time. And he came in as Santa Claus. And from that moment on, I thought Santa Claus was black. And so it was just it's funny. It just was a funny thing of how it affects you and what you think about. And I remember then we went to the mall and I saw that they had a white Santa Claus. But it just was the funniest thing that my dad came in as Santa Claus with the beard, the whole nine, and just was a really funny thing for me and my brothers. I got 2 brothers at that time, and so what a good dude he was. So. Anyway, I appreciate you guys having me on here. This has been great. We play Tennessee State here in a couple hours, but I wasn't going to miss the opportunity to come on here and get a chance to talk with you guys and more importantly, talk about my program and what these guys are doing. We got some really good guys, and I couldn't be any prouder of them and happier for them. So I appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah, absolutely, Coach. Best of luck the rest of the way. Good luck. Tell Coach Collins I said hello, and have a great holidays.
Will do. Same to you guys.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Coach. All right. Well, we had our first head coach, Coach Lamont Paris. What a big time dude! What a big time job he's done. I'll let my co-partner and teammate take the way on kind of breaking that down.
Yeah, it was a really good conversation with Lamont. The team's off to an 8-0 start. I believe the only 8-0 team in the country to this point. Chattanooga has been playing really good basketball, and it's an interesting team because of not only the fact that this team entered the season with a number of guys who were sitting out for redshirt years, but playing with such a short rotation, mostly just 7 or 8 guys, but they made it work so far. And he spoke to the versatility of this roster, really strong perimeter shooting on the offensive side. They've improved quite a bit defensively. And I think that the win over UAB over the weekend was kind of a vindication for this program of where they're at. I think they're going to be a factor in the SoCon, and that is always one of my favorite mid-major leagues. It's a league that has a lot of quality programs. Wofford, we've seen what they've done in recent years. East Tennessee State's good. Furman, I've already watched 3 or 4 of their games this season. They're really fun. So Chattanooga is a team to watch. I feel like he kind of spoke to it a little bit. They've kind of flown under the radar a little bit heading into the season, but they're making it work with the pieces that they've got, and it's a really versatile team that I think can do some damage.
Absolutely. And what a journey. He's been at all levels, has seen the highest of the high as well, and talk about a climb from the lower levels of college basketball all the way to the highest and going to the Final Four, and now having a chance to be a head coach and lead a program and having enormous success. Love the fact that he took the time, even on a game day, to come on. Love the fact that, again, just a down-to-earth guy who gets what it's about and wants to win at a high level and has the right kind of guys doing it, but also still taking the time out to want to give back and share his lessons and his stories. So awesome to have him on, and awesome to have Coach King on. 2 undefeated teams, 2 teams that are constantly doing heat checks right now as they continue to move forward. And we got a quick comment. A couple quick comments we'll say. I know Coach Daryl Jacobs had a question. We pretty much asked this one, DJ. Say congratulations on your great start. Talk about the process of getting a head coach, particularly position, particularly when you're interviewing as a black coach. So we did talk about that, Daryl. Thanks so much for that. And then Coach Leary said good stuff. And then he also said, well said, Coach. There are great players on every level and great coaches. And I think that's the one thing, with your website and not only this show, just to be able to highlight some of the coaches that are not at the highest level or don't get the most visibility, because there's some high-level basketball players and coaches on every single level. So, that's a big goal of ours, to help spread the wealth on that. And then we got another one. I'll let Eli go first. Give us both your funny Christmas story. I got one. I'll lead with this.
Okay.
I appreciate you asking that, John. So everyone knows about the time of year it is in Christmas, right? So in Christmas time of year, there's this stuff that looks like milk that's not milk, and they call it
Oh boy.
right?
Oh man.
So my brothers and I are young and don't know what – I didn't know what eggnog was, at least. Maybe I did, but, it's in the refrigerator. It looks like milk. It's in the clear container. It's definitely thicker than milk. But if you're a kid, you just grab it and you're trying to eat your cereal, So I have two brothers, an older brother and a younger brother, and we all sit down and make the same mistake because we're all just kind of following. If one brother does it, the other brother does it. So nobody caught it, but we had eggnog in our cereal.
Oh.
So if you know my dad at this point in time, my dad is not the same now. He would probably have been much more graceful now. But at that time, he was leading with an iron fist. So needless to say, my younger brother is 3 years younger. My older brother is 3 years older. My younger brother probably did not have to – he may have taken one bite. I don't know. But my older brother, being the oldest, it almost like he got the brink of the punishment, because it was like, okay, you're going to eat all that since you put it in there. Man, you talk about a horrible experience. And he said the same to me. I think I kind of like took a bite and faded and just like played chicken with the table and just like sitting there playing with it. And just I decided I was not taking another bite, but I was going to sit here as long as I could and to get out of it. But my older brother, I don't know if he finished it, but that's probably our favorite holiday story to tell, not only of a funny story, but also of how iron fist my dad used to lead with. It's like, Dad, was it really that important that we had to eat it and we couldn't just pour it out and get some?
You wasted the eggnog.
But I guess his lesson of the day was to make sure we read or pay attention before we eat. So yeah, that's my funny Christmas story. Thanks, John Weisbrot, for asking. I'll let Eli tell his next.
Oh man. Well, I mean, really quick, I have a story that's like that for me. I was in Sweden last year, and I was looking at the labels. I don't know how to speak Swedish, and I picked up one of those milk cartons, which I thought was just like a 1% or 2% milk. Got back to my Airbnb, filled myself up with the cereal that I had, took the first bite, and I don't know what it was, Brian, but it was not like your standard 1% or 2% milk. It had some sour stuff going on there. So I guess I could kind of say I lived the same experience. But as far as funny Christmas stories, I was too young, so I don't remember it, but it's told every Christmas. I was probably, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3, and family had the Christmas tree set up. And I guess when I was younger, I had just kind of this knack of wanting to climb on everything. I used to climb trees, and I climbed up the stairs and everything before I should have. And I guess I wasn't supervised at the time, and I kind of climbed up, and I got on the Christmas tree, and I was climbing up the Christmas tree, and got enough to the top where it got too top heavy, fell over, all the ornaments and stuff all like busted up. You just a whole complete mess. And I think this was back when we don't have the real Christmas trees now, but I think that was back at the time where we had the real Christmas tree. So you can imagine what all the pine needles and stuff were like. But that's the one that is told every Christmas, of me climbing up the Christmas tree. And the following years, my parents did a much better job of making sure that it wasn't in reach, or that I knew not to climb up the Christmas tree, so we didn't have to go through another batch of ornaments the next year.
I love it, man. That's awesome. Well, as we wrap up, man, tell us a little bit about what you're looking forward to with this next couple weeks of games.
Yeah, I mean, we've got games on Christmas, so that's unusual. We've got 4 Big Ten games on Christmas, as Lamont told us. That should be a lot of fun. Wisconsin and Michigan State is probably the biggest one that day. We've got good games tonight. West Virginia takes on Kansas. Mountaineers haven't won there since they joined the Big 12. That's going to be a lot of fun. And we do have a lot of quality games from the non-high major ranks. San Diego State will head to St. Mary's tonight. They're hoping to avenge their loss to BYU the last time out. Georgia Tech and UAB. UAB was undefeated up until they met Lamont and UT Chattanooga over the weekend. So that's another team to keep an eye on. And then Saturday, probably the game of the week, Gonzaga against Virginia in Fort Worth. I think this is such a fun matchup because of the different styles of play that both of these teams implement. Gonzaga with their up-tempo, perimeter-oriented attack. They can hit from all 3 levels. And then Virginia, we know what Tony Bennett likes to do. He likes to slow it down. He likes to win games in the 60s. It's such a different style of basketball between those 2 teams, and they're both capable of winning at their styles. So I'm curious how that one unfolds. That game will be played in Fort Worth, and so that's a fun one. And then on Sunday, to wrap up the week, Drake at Indiana State. Missouri Valley, I think it's a league that I looked at as a potential 2-bid league heading into the year with Loyola Chicago and UNI. UNI lost AJ Green, and they've been off to a bit of a challenging start. But a lot of these other teams have emerged. Southern Illinois has been really good. Drake's off to an undefeated start as well. And that could be a preview of what's to come in the Missouri Valley. That should be a really fun matchup. So even though it's the week of Christmas, have a lot of good games. And I don't know where you stand on NBA on Christmas or college basketball on Christmas. I'm always more biased to the college hoop side, so I'll be definitely tuning into those Big Ten games on Christmas. I think it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I would have to say, college basketball, I feel like it's new on Christmas Day, isn't it? I mean, there's
I think it's like the first time.
It's kind of a bigger deal now. So if I had to pick, I'd probably go back and forth, to be honest. Christmas Day NBA is actually usually pretty good. There's some good matchups, but I'm always a college basketball fan over NBA. But you got to go back and forth, man. It's Christmas. You got to be able to flip back and forth and celebrate both ways. But thanks so much for joining us today. Looking forward to another Heat Check episode here pretty soon. We have some surprises for you coming up next week. We don't have a live show, but we do have some surprises coming up for you. So stay tuned to the Twitter feed of myself and Eli and Heat Check CBB. And happy holidays. Stay safe, and great show today. And don't drink the eggnog. Don't.
That's right. That's right.
Don't do it. Anything else you got, Eli? I'll let you know.
Yeah. I hope everyone has a good and safe holiday wherever they're at. Everyone's doing okay and just enjoying the time best they can. And we're really pleased to always have people chiming in and giving us questions and comments during the show. We really appreciate that. We've had some great guests coming on, and should be a lot of fun moving forward. So happy holidays to you and everyone else who have tuned in this week and these past few weeks.
Absolutely. Well, stay safe, travel safe, wear a mask, tell your loved ones you love them, and don't drink the eggnog. See you soon.